My name is Dr. William Glasser. I'm president of the William Glasser Institute. The purpose of the Institute on our logo is teaching choice theory to the world. And I'm the originator of the ideas of choice theory, and choice theory is what I call the mother book. I've written many books, but I call this the mother book because choice theory is what we go back to all the time. And other books are specific applications of choice theory. And the other book I think is important to this particular conference, which is concerned about the human rights of children, is that children's human rights are often violated by a field which I'm a member of. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, MD, and other psychiatrists are also MDs and could be board-certified. But I'm different from most psychiatrists is I focus on what I call mental health, because I believe there is such a thing as mental health, and I also believe that it can be taught. You can teach people to improve their mental health, and you can teach it to children as small as 4 and 5 years of age, or you can teach it to older people and even very old people. You can teach it. Mental health can be taught to anyone who's capable of learning. And choice theory, it can be taught to anyone who's capable of understanding what a choice is. Because all through our lives, we make choices. And as we make choices, we make choices that help us get along with people in our lives, and we make choices that harm us as we harm the relationships with people in our lives. So, for example, what we talk about is in choice theory, we want to make the choices which we call mentally healthy choices, and in the book I describe how that happens and everything else. But basically, we believe that there are kind of good things to choose, and we call these the helping habits. And there's about 7 of these. There's more than 7, and we also have the harmful habits or the deadly habits. And if you're having difficulty getting along with another person, and the major groups of people who have difficulty getting along are like husbands and wives, only about 20% of the marriages are really happy for the lifetime of the marriage. And that's a very unsatisfying relationship, because the people who are married and their marriages fail, what they do is they don't understand how to put choice theory to work in their marriage, and they use the deadly habits in their marriage. And I'll just mention, because they're very simple, they tend to criticize each other. If you're married to a person who criticizes you, you criticize the person, or very often the husband and wives criticize each other. That criticism will ultimately destroy the marriage. They may still married, grit their teeth and stand it, but they won't ever enjoy the marriage, and they won't have a happy marriage. And after criticizing, we have blaming. People blame each other all the time. And after blaming, people complain about each other a great deal. And then we have nagging. People, even the word nagging sounds like it's bad, and it is bad. And after nagging, we have threatening, we have punishing, and then we have bribing. Those make up the 7 habits. And if you can live your life, and we teach people to live their lives this way, we teach people to live their lives without ever using the deadly habits. And it's something they can learn to do, because sometimes it comes as a great surprise. And we can teach them, and they often respond to us. Either we can teach them in groups, we can teach them in couples like marital people, or we can teach marital people in groups, or we can teach them individuals. People can come to us and say, well, I just want to talk to you and I want to get help. My life is not going the way I want. And then we have a big book, which I don't present here or anything like that. Psychiatrists have created this big book. It started as a little book and grew to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's a pretty huge book. It's called the DSM-4, Diagnostic and Statistic manual, 4th edition. They're working on the 5th edition now. And the DSM-4 is the most destructive book, destructive to human relationships that's ever been written. And yet it's the Bible of much psychiatry, of most of psychiatrists and things like that, because they think this book is accurate. And if you learn choice theory, you learn how inaccurate it is and how deadly it is. So when you move from the deadly habits like criticizing, blaming, complaining, and things like that, to the healthy habits of supporting and encouraging and listening and also recognizing people's value and things like that and negotiating. I can't rattle off the deadly habits as much as I've done because I even find, I rattle off the deadly ones, but I find the helping habits, they're so obvious that you don't do anything to destroy the relationship. Therefore, if the relationship's in trouble, you do it. But what I teach, and which is important in this little thing, is if a husband and wife come to me and I teach them how to get along with each other, I say to them, and I can teach this to the group in 2 or 3 minutes, I say, what you should do is take the deadly habits out of your marriage. If it's a married couple or out of any relationship, husband and wife, parent and child, business partners with each other, and school people use the deadly habits all the time. So I'll say, suppose, make it simple, suppose it's a husband and wife, and the husband learns criticizing is a very deadly habit. And he decides he wants to make his marriage better. So what he does, when he finds this out, he'll often go home and say to his wife, you know, I choose to do something which I think is harmful to our marriage. Now this is important because the whole basic concept of choice theory is that each one of us chooses everything we do, but we can only choose for ourselves. We can't choose for we can try to choose for someone else, but that doesn't work. We can only choose for ourselves. So the husband comes home and says to his wife, I found and I believe and I've learned, and I even talked to Dr. Glasser or read some of his books, that criticizing is very harmful to my marriage. And the wife will say, well, I agree with that. You know, criticizing is harmful. But then, and this is the key point, this is really understanding this. If the human rights of children can be protected, we would teach what I'm trying to teach now to everyone in the world. Because everyone in the world has rights. You know, I can't go into all these rights now, but they have rights. But we can destroy the rights when we destroy the relationships. The relationships are what are really important. And so the husband now, to make it very understandable, comes home and says to a wife, I think me criticizing you is harmful to our marriage, and the wife agrees. And then, this is the key point. If you understand this point, you'll understand what 95% of the people do not understand. The husband will say, and I've decided to stop criticizing you. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, I will no longer criticize you. But I may slip because I've been doing it for a while. And if I do, remind me and I'll apologize and say, I'm sorry for doing it. I slipped and I'm not going to do it anymore. And then what will the wife say? The wife may say, well, you can stop criticizing me and that would be good, but I suppose because you're stopping criticizing me, that you want me to stop criticizing you. And here is what makes choice theory work, whether it's with groups or individuals or any place else in the world. A person who wants to get choice theory to work because you want to preserve your relationships with other people. Because the only psychological problem in the world is people not getting along with the important people in their lives. The husband will say, I'm going to stop whether you stop or not. What you do will have no effect on me. You can criticize me, blame me, complain about me, and I'll never do that in return to you. Now, what position does this put the wife in? If the husband actually does it, she'll say, I believe it when I see it, but the husband actually does it. Or it could be the wife doing it either way. I'm just suggesting one or the other. I'm not saying one or the other is more likely to do this. But what happens is, if the marriage continues, it'll start getting better. Or if the relationship between a parent and a child, it'll stop getting better. Between a teacher and a student, or between an employer and a worker, the relationship will start to improve, things will work better, we'll be able to make better products, get along better, create a better society. All these things by learning to get along better with each other. And why is it that we don't get along as well with each other? If we have a dog and a cat living in the house, we'll find in most cases they get along fine with each other. They may spat once in a while, but mostly they get along okay. They get along with us too. So what do they have that's different? They're animals. They're mammals, actually. And we'll talk about mammals because this is important. The reason is that all mammals have 4 basic needs. And the needs are to survive, to love and belong. If you can't love and belong, you couldn't raise your children. They wouldn't live. And freedom. All animals want to be free. And all animals really want fun, because little dogs and puppies will play around, they'll play all the time. Fun is very important. Those are 4 basic needs which all mammals have, including humans. But we're different because as we have evolved, because our needs are genetically encoded in all of us, as we have evolved, we have come upon, probably in the time of agriculture, when we could create crops and store them, we had time on our hands. And people with time on their hands decided, well, if I've got time on my hands and I have enough, maybe I could find the neighbor and I'll take some of his away and I'll control him. And what we've developed in the world is a world psychology which is totally destructive, which harms the human rights of children and everybody else's rights. We developed a psychology called external control psychology. All that is explained in this book, and it's also explained in this one, because warning, psychiatry will be hazardous to your mental health, and what's hazardous is the psychiatrists themselves practice external control psychiatry, which is exactly the opposite. They teach people to control other people. And many marriage counselors do that inadvertently because they don't understand that external control psychology is the fundamental difference that makes it hard for us to get along with other people. And what we have developed over the years, probably because we had time on our hands around the Euphrates River where the civilization started, around where Iraq is now, we developed a 5th need which other creatures don't have. We developed the need for power. Human beings have the need for power. And it's this need which causes all the wars in the world, all the terrible things going on in the world. The war in Iraq is caused by people trying to satisfy their need for power. All wars are. And in fact, if you study history, it's always the time between wars. Mostly that's what history is about, not the time between wars. History is the time of wars and the short time between wars, which have gone on for years and years and years, all of which come from external control society. And every society in the world, there's 6,000 societies in the world, they all practice psychology. So what I try to offer, and all the people I work with in the William Glasser Institute, what we do is teach people how to live their lives and get along well with the important people in their lives without attempting to control them or change the way they live or doing anything like that. And if you meet a person like that, and you meet them in your life, these people who really you enjoy being with, and you don't know why you enjoy it, then you think about it, you say, these people never criticize me, never blame me, never complain about me. They always try to get along. And that's what we're trying to teach, and if we can teach that to as many people as we can get to, and certainly when I work with Chloe Madanis and other people like Tony Robbins and the human rights of children, we're trying to teach people how to live and let live. And if you can't get along with people and you learn choice theory, you say, well, just because we can't get along, we don't have to be enemies. We don't have to harm each other. We don't have to try and force each other to change. We don't have to use any coercion on each other. We just accept the fact that some of us just don't get along well with each other, and that's the way it is. My best friend for 62 years is filled with external control, but he's also filled with love and kindness, but it's the external control that makes him so different, and yet we get along fine because he has learned, and from me to some extent, that if he tries to control me, it won't work in our relationship, and he's smart. He's made a lot of money, he's a multimillionaire. But he's learned in business that he doesn't try to control his people to the extent that they don't work hard. He supports them and encourages them and has made a lot of money doing that. So this is valuable all over the world. It's something we teach. Choice Theory is the mother book. This book informs us that psychiatry, specifically getting into the point where they now they diagnose you with mental illnesses you don't have. The only thing you have is you don't get along well with people. They treat you by saying to you, we'll give you drugs which will help you to get along better, and these drugs actually harm you and make it more difficult to get along, but there's huge money in drugs. And they also tell you you can do nothing to help yourself. Well, when you learn choice theory, you learn there's a lot to do to help, you can use to help yourself and to help others at the same time. And in doing so, you can really not only get along well with the people in your life, have better marriages, better relationships in every other way, but you really can help transform a world which is being ruined and wrecked by external control psychology. And the really, really harmful thing about external control psychology, which is all written and explained in these books in great detail, is the people that use it believe they're right. And human beings are the only creatures who really believe I'm right and you're wrong, and if you don't do what I say, I'll kill you. Animals never do anything like that. And we can learn not to do that. We haven't so far in really thousands and thousands of years of history. But I have hopes that you can, and I appreciate the chance to explain this on this videotape. And if you want to find out more about what I do, well, read at least Choice Theory, the basic book, and you'll find out a great deal. We have a website, wglasser.com. You can turn on the website and learn more. You can write me, and I'll answer all my letters, and I'd be happy to do so. So thank you very much for this opportunity.